Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for October. Not even October yet, September 30th through October 6th, 2024. So sorry for late start today. We've got this solar eclipse in 2 days, and it just feels like there's all this energetic movement. How are you feeling? How are you feeling this energy? I feel like last week, maybe this was the eclipse in Pisces, maybe this was Neptune. I just was so tired. And I noticed that now, like, my dreams are more intense, or maybe there's just, again, there's all this psychic energy that's in the force right now. So yes, if you're watching live, as always, do say hello. And even if you're not watching live, it's always nice to hear or to see where everybody is watching from. So just again, my name is Katie Sweetman, and every week we gather live to look at the astrology. You hear me say it every week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. And it just sometimes feels like, especially during eclipses, that 50% is a little tight, because the thing about what is astrology? Astrology is time, it's measuring time, is measuring symbolic time. And there are energies that are greater than us. And we really do see that with eclipses. We see how time shifts and changes and turns. We can see how our lives can go into a different chapter or direction. Of course, we're all different. And there are, I'm sure you've had experiences in your life already at this point where there are just things that are bigger than you. And eclipses, they really mark the time of our lives, almost like a new hour. And eclipses, and I've said this more than a few times at this point, eclipses are not that far behind the major events of our lives. Typically when we make a major move, when there's a career change, when there's a birth, when there's a marriage, when there's divorce, when there's something else, you typically see eclipses really marking the time of our life, almost like chapter heads, for example. Because these eclipses, more the eclipse that we're going to have this week in Libra, have been in Libra and then in Aries. We had an Aries eclipse 6 months ago, April 8th, and even into October of 2023 and April of 2023. These are two signs, Aries and Libra, where things are a bit dynamic. There's changes, there's a lot going on, and maybe if you're an Aries or Libra rising, you're shaking your head. Yes, there's a lot that's going on. And I said, just these signs particularly, but we, if you do recall, we did have a lunar eclipse in Pisces just 2 weeks ago. Gosh, that 2 weeks ago. So Virgo and Pisces are going to be two signs that they too are going to start to see life getting a bit dynamic and a bit interesting. So these eclipses, the Aries Libra ones, these eclipses, they thread a story. And maybe that story is obvious, maybe it's not so obvious at this point. That's sometimes the maddening thing about astrology, is that we see it in hindsight, maybe not exactly when we're in the moment. Sometimes it helps to look back at previous times where we've had eclipses in Aries and Libra. So this would be 2015-16. This would be 2004-2005, 1995-1996. I could keep going back, but just sort of, keep it focused to the last 30 years. These were when we had eclipses in Aries and Libra. So maybe you see a thread back to those periods of time. I mean, I can personally say 2004, 5, 2015, 16 were massive times in my life. And even, because I have what's called a midheaven IC in Aries and Libra, or so that should be Libra Aries. You all probably know at this point, like I moved a few months ago. So yeah, it's a big thing in my life as well. So this is just checking in. Eclipses, they are major psychic events. It's a surge of energy. And I realize every time I say this, every eclipse season, I get it. I'm a little bit in the minority when I say this, but I personally do not go out and look at eclipses. Mind you, you have to be in the middle of the Pacific or in South America, in Argentina, Tierra del Fuego, Chile, to see this eclipse. because they can be destabilizing. Just how do you feel right now? And you're not even in the path of the eclipse. Like, oh, feels like this is happening. It feels like I'm on a boat, except the boat is planet Earth and it's moving. Because when an eclipse happens, it's a momentary cut between the connection between the Earth and the Sun. Psychically, symbolically, spiritually, that creates a lot of, stress, and let's say even conflict. And it's one of the reasons why sometimes things can get a little bit dramatic around the time of eclipses. Not always, but that's just one way of looking at it. Maybe you see things differently. But surely we are in the gate for a solar eclipse. So this solar eclipse will be for most of the world October, is that true? October 2nd. So Wednesday at least here in the United States, East Coast time, 2:50 p.m. at 10 degrees of Libra. For those that are in, I believe, Asia, Australia, the eclipse will be October 3rd. So if eclipses, they open a new chapter of time, it says that this chapter of time is going to be through the lens of Libra. Libra is the location of the new moon. The new moon happens to be a solar eclipse because the solar eclipse is within a few degrees of the lunar nodes. There's another topic. It means that over the next 6 months, Libra is a lens for us. And here's where this is just your friendly reminder that we have all 12 signs in our zodiac. We have all 12 signs in our personal astrology. So even if you're saying this eclipse has nothing to do with me, I am not a Libra, but au contraire, like you have Libra somewhere in your personal astrology, and it may even be a career sign. It could be about money. It could be about health. It really depends on your personal astrology. Libra collectively, meaning the zodiac, is the wheel of life. It teaches us about life, about how to progress, how to learn, how to discover the world around us. And when the sun gets to Libra, which it did on the 22nd of September, we've arrived in something called the 7th sign of the zodiac. So we are now midway through the zodiac, midway through the astrological year. The astrological year begins with the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, the sun's arrival in Aries. So both Aries and Libra are cardinal signs. They align with the 4 seasons, the 4 directions, and then the other cardinal signs are Capricorn and Cancer. And so these are very powerful signs. And yes, you could argue that all the signs are powerful, but these 4 signs, symbolically speaking, hold up the sky. They are the 4 directions. They hold up your life in a way that maybe you don't realize, because Aries, first sign of the zodiac, we need Aries. We need to get out of bed in the morning. We need to have our desire, our motivation, our drive to get things done, a sense of individuality, healthy individuality. And then the other side, the zodiac, we see Libra. And Libra is relationships and partnerships and connection, and more importantly, socialization. We don't live in a bubble unless you live alone in the woods. We don't live in a bubble. So we live in a world where we are surrounded by people, varying degrees of connection. But astrology, at least, I'm pretty sure biology too, teaches us we need people. We can't do things alone. And that's where Libra comes in as the counter to Aries and says, don't forget about other people. Don't forget about your relationships, whatever form they take, whether they are intimate relationships and partnerships, or even friendships and even casual relationships. Because with Libra, we learn to rely on other people. We learn to negotiate and to compromise. We learn to see the world, or maybe the perspective from other people that we wouldn't otherwise have. And we get the reflection back to us from other people. Libra. And so these 2 signs, you can't have so much Libra, we can't have so much compromise, so much, giving away what we really truly want, that we lose connection with our own desires. And that's been a little bit of the back and forth between Aries and Libra with these eclipses since 2023. This solar eclipse, again, puts your relationships in some sort of spotlight over the next 6 months. We will need to re-examine how we negotiate and compromise, how we stand up for what we want, our relationship with desire, because Aries is on the other side of the sky. We need to look at relationships both on a surface level, Libra, and also relationships on a deeper level, because at the time of the solar eclipse, on Wednesday, October 2nd, Venus, the ruler of the eclipse, is over in Scorpio. So it says that the energy of the eclipse is pointing over to Scorpio. And I'm saying this as a Scorpio. It is a very different sign than Libra. Libra is, on some levels, the veneer. It is what we see on a surface level. Libra is beauty. It's design, it's aesthetic, it's harmony, it's balance. Let's make everything nice for everybody. Something wrong with that. We need that to sort of create life in our lives. But Scorpio takes it in a little bit of a different direction. Scorpio is intimacy, vulnerability, trust. It is the emotional material between two people, for better, for worse. And we need Scorpio to help create emotional bonds and connections. Because if you just have a lot of hi, how are you, not really talking about anything, relationships, there's no Scorpio, there's just Libra. So this is also perhaps the next 6 months where you need to get a little uncomfortable. I'm saying that in a positive way, to learn to talk about your desires, to open up, to trust other people, or maybe even examine where you don't trust, or maybe even very good reason not to trust. Scorpio is very much a sign that's driven by trust, by loyalty, by connection. And Scorpio is that type of energy where it's like, I know I can rely on this person. I can call them in the middle of the night and they'll be there for me. Or I can share my deepest, most intimate parts of myself with this other person, and they'll hold space, they'll listen. Even if it's not through the lens of a relationship with another person, Scorpio can also talk about the relationship with yourself, because it's in Scorpio where all the illusions of life get stripped away. And maybe you've been saying to yourself for a long time, everything is fine. But Scorpio can sometimes assure you everything is not fine. And it's a sign where on like a healthy level, we go to therapy, we talk to a counselor or somebody we trust, and we can really get into a space where we talk about our intimate feelings and emotions. This is only the things that we have within. Scorpio allows us to process our feelings and our experiences. It helps us to move on. Water energy in the astrology, the element of water, Scorpio is a water sign. It talks about movement. It's not the movement of air, Libra. Libra is social exchange and movement and systems. But water talks about emotional movement. So what do we need to move on from? Especially because this eclipse is around the south node of the moon, something I mentioned earlier. The south node, there are these 2 points, energetic points in the sky. They make eclipses happen. It's because gosh, am I doing my astronomy right? The sun and the moon, the new moon, aligns so that the moon blocks the light of the sun. That's a solar eclipse. Am I doing my astronomy right? And that happens every 6 months. So astronomically speaking, we can predict that. So my point is that we've got this period where we need to do a lot of self-examination, a lot of reflection. And we're all different people. We all have different lives and different histories and different relationships with relationship and different relationships with emotional vulnerability and trust. And maybe over the next 6 months for some of us, we need to look at toxic relationships and the people that maybe aren't of value in our life or supporting our life. Again, we're all different people. So it's a lot of energy this week. A lot of things are moving. And it's possible that if you've not seen something right away, a seed has been planted. If I'm speaking in very technical terms, pardon me for a moment, 10 degrees of Libra, 10 degrees of Cardinal will be very hot and active over the coming months. Sometimes we see the eclipse personally before the eclipse, and it's one of the reasons why I said pay attention to July of 2024, because it was 3 months before the eclipse. It was a time when we were tying together the eclipse of October 2nd and the eclipse of April 8th. Sometimes we see the eclipse a month later. Sometimes we see it in our own life when something will hit that degree. Now, everybody's astrology is different. And depending on what 10 degrees of Libra, 10 degrees of Cardinal means for you, it will shape your experiences. I personally do not have anything at 10 degrees of Libra or 10 degrees of Cardinal. I do have a Mars at 11 degrees of Sagittarius at the sextile. These are just examples. But if you have Pluto there, maybe you're born in the mid 70s, maybe you've got Saturn there, you're born in the early 80s. This might bring up, stuff depending on what these things mean for your own personal astrology. That's looking at things, potentially on a personal level. But when we go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, we'll sort of see what is the general look at what's going on with the eclipses, because there's generally a theme, and I'll talk about it in a way where, like, it could be this, it could be this. That's the thing. I don't know your life, so I don't know exactly, not that, I think anybody truly knows exactly what it's going to be, but to have more of the specificities, this is where, a one-on-one consultation could be beneficial, possibly. But, for example, if you are a Capricorn or Capricorn rising, then this eclipse is about career or responsibilities or your public life. This is just a few examples. So, in short, it's a week where the major focus of the astrology is this solar eclipse, this new moon on October 2nd. We really don't have a lot of other we do have other aspects. We've got Mars trine Saturn today. So interestingly enough, because this eclipse does make a square to Mars, Mars is a provocateur. Mars brings things up, especially Mars in Cancer. It's like, am I safe? Do I have enough? Those very almost infantile emotions, because it's like we get into that really early stage of development where we just want to be held, we just want to feel safe. And I'm like, that sounds nice. But Mars does really hit on these very deep emotions, and sometimes these emotions go back to childhood. Well, they touch on themes about family. So we are going to see over the next 6 months that Mars is really poking on things, and maybe emotions are coming up. Maybe things are a little bit more provocative. I know you're thinking, like, but I just want everything to be quiet. Me too. Me too. It's just a potential. That's not a hard and fast prediction. But definitely things are a little bit interesting now. I'm certainly thinking about, here in the States, because I know I have clients in the Asheville area. Like, we had a big hurricane here in the United States that hit Florida and Tennessee, North Carolina. So that's not to say that the eclipse made that happen. It's just there's a lot of things that are going on right now. So sometimes people ask me, well, what should I do? Should I charge my crystals? Should I make a manifestation list? And I'm like, just maybe this is just my advice. Just relax, meditate, because I think sometimes we really need to use this time to get back in touch with our higher self, our higher wisdom, our higher guidance. Certainly, as I was saying at the beginning of our time together, like, it seems like dreams are very vivid right now. I know other people have been saying the same on social media when I've asked this, Facebook, Instagram. So yeah, just don't charge your crystals. Maybe you want to write something out just to sort of center your thoughts and to think about, what is the state of relationships in my life? Where are the spaces within myself that I've been a little bit hesitant to go? What do I need in order, for somebody to guide me through this space within myself? It's just one way of looking at it. So That's your look at the astrology of this week. I talked about this last week. I'm doing a level 1 intensive this weekend of energetic sciences. This is not my work, but it is something that does talk about energy, particularly subtle energy, the energy that we cannot see, the structure of the world around us, the energetic fabric, something that we call the weft. So this is going to be 11 to 5 Saturday and Sunday, October 5th and 6th. It's not recorded. You need to be there for both days, but it does get into things that are about energy, and maybe even giving, if you're interested in astrology, even though this is not about astrology, reframing a little bit about astrology, because how is it that a planet that's millions of miles away can have effect on us? Well, maybe it's pulling at these invisible strings and threads, and then maybe that there's an energy or an archetype that's transmitted by this planet. Just another way of looking at things. So link is in my show notes. Happy to answer questions if you reach out, and hope you can join me. So let's look at the astrology of each of the 12 signs. Listen for your sun sign, listen for your rising sign. I know some people like to listen for their moon sign. Just my personal advice about moon sign is that unless the moon rules something like the ascendant, because you're Cancer rising, or like a major angle, the moon is more talking about the emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? Like sort of the emotional atmosphere, what you're experiencing. But that's just the way that I look at things. So let's look at the astrology, starting with Aries. Aries, so this eclipse, it's opposite you. It's in your relationship sign. And do keep in mind, this is the last eclipse that's going to be in your relationship sign until 2033. I know that's a long time from now, but this is starting to come to a conclusion around the relationships of your life. Of course, relationships mean different things to different Aries. Some of you are in long-term committed relationships. Some of you are single. This is not necessarily about that, but it's about the people in your life. So there's something about this eclipse that's really putting the focus on the next 6 months about other people in your life. How, maybe they need more attention. Maybe you need to focus on building relationship and partnership. Maybe you're starting a relationship. Maybe you and a relationship are sort of going to whatever the next step is in your relationship with another person. With the energy of Venus in Scorpio, the energy of the eclipse is pointing over to a sign that brings up a lot of deep emotions. And of course, this will mean different things to different Aries, but just to sort of look at it from a couple different angles. It may mean that you need to get really real with a partner, or really start to open up and find your vulnerability or your ability to trust, or maybe even looking at themes around trust with a partner, whether that's an intimate partner or whether that's somebody who plays a key role in your life. Typically, while the relationships are about socialization, you will see a relationship, a key connection get highlighted during this time, during the eclipse. Mars, which rules you, is in your is in your sign of home and family, and in a way, you're kind of in the crosshairs with this eclipse. Again, it's going to mean different things to different Aries. It may mean that there's a lot of shifts and changes, either in your home environment, maybe there's a move, or maybe you and a partner are talking about something, maybe you want to make changes in the household, or maybe it's about family, maybe it's about emotions that are coming up, maybe old stuff. So this eclipse is pressing upon, sort of the structure of your life, Aries. Maybe a lot is going on at the moment. Maybe you're having to really figure out next steps. It is putting some stress into your astrology. There will be one more eclipse in Aries. This will be, on March 29th of 2025, and that will close out the cycle. So really, whatever is happening in your life right now, take it as part of a bigger story, and certainly a story that has been with you since roughly April 2023, maybe beginning of 2023, and how that is actually connected to a larger story and framework about relationships. So in short, Aries, relationships are a big focus right now. Maybe it's time for you to face yourself, face the past, face your emotions, face your feelings, face your fears, in order for something to progress in whatever direction that is. Taurus. Taurus. So Venus is your planet, and Venus is in the spotlight with this lunar eclipse, this solar eclipse. So while this solar eclipse is in something called your sixth sign, the sixth sign is about health and wellness. So maybe for some Tauruses, you need to really look at how you're taking care of your body, what's going on, making new changes, positive new changes, hopefully. But it also talks about service to others and even relationship dynamics, particularly the relationship dynamics where your desires and your wants can sometimes get pushed to the side. That's not necessarily going to be relevant for every Taurus, but there is something about relationships with this eclipse. So whether you need to examine a relationship dynamic, whether you need to examine your relationship with people, how you show up, how you help, how you care, how you take care of people. Again, it's for you to see how this is relevant in your life. But this eclipse, because it does bring in the energies of Venus, in a way, it talks about you. Venus is making a square to Mars, so there is a little bit of like, let's take action. It's a little bit provocative. So maybe if something is happening in a relationship, things are coming up, things that are emotional, and it's really pressing on some bigger themes about the future, your future with somebody else, two people trying to figure out how things are going to align, and even friendships might even be very highlighted with this eclipse. Gemini. So Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is a little bit in the hot seat right now. So kind of in a way, you're in the hot seat too. This eclipse is in Libra, and Libra is something called your fifth sign. So one of the things about having an eclipse in the fifth sign is that it can bring up themes about identity, passion, creativity, and self. Now, those are things that you can't touch. They can't be quantified. They're feeling. And so it can bring up questions like, Gemini, do you know who you are? Do you take yourself and take your talents seriously? If you're burnt out, how do you get back to the things that you love, that light you up and give you joy? Do you give space for creativity? And creativity comes in a lot of different forms. Even if you are thinking like, I'm not artistic, Katie, but this eclipse might say, get in touch with a part of yourself that wants to naturally create something. Because creativity is when we take the best of who we are, the best of ourselves, and we put it into something. Even if that's a spreadsheet, for example. So this eclipse is bringing Venus into what's called your six. The six is work, it's projects, it's health and wellness. So maybe it's all these themes about identity, but also needing to make something real, make something concrete. Like, yes, this is who you are, this is what you want, your creativity, but how is it real? Like, how do you give time to the things that you love? So there is a need to find the balance between how you light your life up, the things that give you joy versus the things that are obligations and duties. One of the things that I love about the relationship between the fifth and the sixth is that the fifth is like the inspiration. The sixth is where we actually sit down and like hammer it out. We come up with a plan. We make it real. We make it tangible. We like put all the steps out. So for you, in a way that's relevant to your life, see how you need to really set some plans in motion. Like, if you've got something in your heart that you really want to make real, well, you might need to really, over the next 6 months, take the time to come up with a plan and to give it time, for example. And for some Geminis, this might talk about children and pregnancy. Of course, this is not going to be relevant to all of you. I will also add, because Mercury is like conjunct the eclipse, so it might mean that there are big things that are happening in your life. Maybe it is a dynamic time, something that's inspiring you, motivating you, pushing you, for example. And we do have Mars square you at the moment. So this is not a solar eclipse where you're just sort of laying around waiting for things to happen. This is a solar eclipse that's really trying to push you, motivate you, inspire you, get you to do something and in a way, of course, that is relevant to your life. Cancer. So the moon is your planet, and the moon is going to be making a conjunction with the sun on Wednesday. That is just another way of saying we're going to have a new moon on Wednesday. And this new moon is a solar eclipse. And that's the thing about being a Cancer, is that typically you feel things. You are ruled by the moon, and so the moon waxes and wanes. It has its ups and its downs, and sometimes the things that you are feeling are not yours. So maybe this is just a little temperature read, a little check-in with Cancer. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Because this energy of this solar eclipse is probably best spent where you're grounded. You're taking care of yourself. You're getting liquids. Maybe you're like staring at the ocean or staring at the river, because Cancers love water. But anything that's going to allow you to sort of pass through these energetic swells in a way that doesn't pull at you, and maybe even pull you or pull emotions or pull you down. For example, Libra is a major sign in the structure of your astrology, because Libra is your fourth sign. If I start out with you, Cancer number 1, I count out 4 signs, I reach Libra. And so Libra is one of the 4 directions of your life, and it creates the base and foundation of your astrology. It says that this eclipse, continuing parts of the story and maybe even experiences that you've been having since 2023, talks about your home environment, it talks about family and your living situation. Classic astrology, eclipse in the 4th is a move. It doesn't necessarily have to be a move, but somebody can move in, somebody can move out. You can start a family. That's certainly a form of movement. You can spend more time with your family. You can contemplate what family means to you. And sometimes, because family is a complicated subject matter for a lot of people, deep emotions might be coming up. If it's not literally about home and family, it might be about these sort of bigger existential questions about really feeling rooted and safe and anchored in life. I would go back, Cancer, and I would look at the Libra eclipse that we had in October of 2023. That was the last time we had a solar eclipse in this part of your chart. We did have a lunar eclipse in this space the end of March of 2024, and to look for the common thread. This eclipse does have Mars in Cancer. Hey, you're a Cancer rising, and so there is a provocative energy with this eclipse. Whatever is happening, Mars might be pushing you to stand up for yourself, to really connect with your desires, to go after what you want, to take the lead. And this might be, whatever is happening, you might need to take a hand in something. You might need to stand up for something. Mars really accentuates the energy of self-reliance, self-motivation. So perhaps a lot of things are happening and moving in October and even into the next 6 months. Leo, so the sun is your planet, and you, the sun and the moon, are coming together this Wednesday, October 2nd. So that's another way of saying we're going to have a new moon, and this new moon happens to be a solar eclipse. So 6 months ago, April 8th, we had that solar eclipse in Aries. Here we are 6 months later. I can't believe it's almost October. It's bananas, but nevertheless, here we are. Libra for you is something called your third sign. The third sign talks about voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. Probably talked about this last week, but you are stepping into a period of your astrology over the next 6 months, and this is playing off of the last 12 months where you've needed either to focus on education, taking classes, learning. Learning comes in a lot of different forms, just being overall curious and inquisitive. Also focusing on voice and communication, how you think and listen and learn. Maybe you're speaking more, maybe you're speaking up more, maybe you're contemplating how you use your voice, and maybe there's a lot of travel. Because both these eclipses do activate parts of the astrology that talk about travel and movement, and it might just be a little bit of a busy time. If it's busy, if you're feeling overwhelmed, how do you like get back to yourself? How do you find your anchor point? This energy is also talking about your home environment, your living situation, because it points over to Scorpio. So over the coming weeks and even the next 6 months, it might be very busy, a lot of movement, a lot of moving around. I'm not moving like moving house around, but there's something about the relationship with your home environment. So whether that means spending more time with family, trying to figure out how to navigate these two very different energies, whether it's setting up a home for yourself, questions around stability and security, trust, power, control, maybe even communicating with family members, talking about things, maybe even sharing, maybe it's not necessarily with family members, but sharing your emotions, talking about the things that typically you only share with a trusted few. So there might be a time when you're talking about some deeper stuff within you, a lot of sharing, a lot of movement, but again, it's for you to see how this is relevant in your life, Leo. Virgo, so Libra is your second sign. It's the sign of money, income, material stability, and security. We are all human beings, which means we typically need food, water, shelter. I think we can all agree on that. Of course, we have different levels of comfort. We have different levels of social conditioning and culture, but these are the basics. So this eclipse on some level might be talking about the basics. It might be talking like, I need to earn more money. I need to create material stability and security for myself. If it's not money per se, it could be property. It could be assets. It could be even the resources that you have available to you. It could even be talking about self-worth and value, because this space also can get into the questions of, how we value ourselves, for example. The energy of this eclipse is bouncing off of Mars. Mars is in Libra, and so it might be even be getting answered questions about how you value yourself and how you value your talents and how you really, invest in the things that light you up and give you joy and give you passion. In a way, you are kind of in the middle of this eclipse because the eclipse is conjunct Mercury, and Mercury is your planet. So there's a little bit of some provocative energies that are going to take you into the coming weeks and maybe even to the next 6 months, where you need to get very motivated to align your value system or even align how you earn a living with the things that actually light you up and give you joy and revitalize you. The energy of the eclipse is also pointing over to Venus in the third. So there's the question about the choices that you're making, having to weigh your options, maybe needing to do some research, see things from a different perspective. Maybe that research comes from, I need to look at different ways to earn a living or different ways to create stability and security for myself. But that might be one of the ways in which these eclipses are coming up for you. I will say, and this is something that we've been talking about, because we had that eclipse in Pisces just 2 weeks ago, relationships continue to be in the spotlight, and this is setting you up for eclipses that are going to take you into 2025 and 6. So it is going to be a dynamic time to be a Virgo, and check in on your Virgos, because I can see that a lot of things are happening in the lives of Virgo risings, because these eclipses are starting to bring in a new story and chapter. Libra. So happy birthday, Libra. If your birthday is on October 2nd, plus or minus a few days, at least by conventional wisdom, it's going to be a powerful new year. Typically, an eclipse on the birthday says that there's some sort of new beginning. You last had an eclipse. There was an eclipse on October 3rd. I can't remember how long ago. Probably almost 20 years ago. But that said, see how that actually shows up in your life. Even if your birthday is not October 2nd, all Libras or Libra risings are feeling this energy, just some more than others. Eclipses, they are surges of energy. I know I've been saying this multiple times at this point over the previous months, but I can go through a list of Libra risings in my head, clients, friends, people in my periphery, and there's just a lot going on. There are marriages, there are births, there are moves, there are career changes, there's just divorces. This is a lot of stuff going on. If whatever you are feeling, it's just a dynamic energy that will continue into 2024. I'm so sorry. This will be the last eclipse in Libra until 2033. I know we got some time. But that said, this eclipse is talking about new beginnings. It's talking about something dynamic in your life. It's putting the spotlight on you in some level, and it's also pointing the energy of Venus over to the second sign of money and income. For some Libras, this is about money, property, and assets, the things that you own, the things that you buy, the things that you invest in, the money that you feel that you can rely on, the things that you earn. And for some Libras, it's not about the physicality of money and assets. It's just about security and stability and feeling safe, feel like you have enough. And for some Libras, it's about value and worth. We do have a very strong square to Mars with this eclipse. Mars is in your sign of career, so this could be a very provocative eclipse that also can show up in either your professional life, the duties and responsibilities that you carry, the direction that you take, your public life, and needing to somehow, whether it's to earn more money, to really get your career in alignment, but there's something that's likely shifting and moving with this eclipse. Scorpio, Mars is your planet, and it's currently in Cancer. Cancer is something called your ninth sign. So until the beginning of November, and this is since the end of July, you've been in a time where you've needed, I think that's true, you've been in a time when you've needed to really think about what you believe in, what you stand for. For some, it is a matter of faith. For some Scorpios, it's not faith per se, but we all need to stand for something. For some Scorpios, it's a need to share, to teach, to share what you've discovered, to illuminate, to help illuminate the path for other people. For some Scorpios, you are planning long-distance travel and exploration. For some Scorpios, it is a time to focus on your education. That said, this eclipse is getting into something called your 12th. The 12th is the last sign of anybody's astrology, and it just so happens that Libra is your 12th sign. It represents the end. It represents the world that is beyond this world, whether that means it's a point of transition or a point of spirituality. It really depends on the Scorpio. So there is something that might be connecting, especially with that Mars, especially with the eclipse, about faith and truth and meaning and what do you believe in, and getting into bigger existential questions, maybe questions around spirituality. Why am I here? What is this all for? And for some Scorpios, it's a need to really search themselves and really to examine their faith, examine what they believe in, and maybe even to spend time not just externally searching, but also internally searching, because that's one of the roles of the 12th. Might be a time when you need to examine your blind spots, your unconscious, anything that you might not readily look. And for some Scorpios, it's a time to rest. It's a time to recuperate, because in your personal astrology, the eclipses are marking the hour where typically it's not about things beginning, it's about things ending, things transitioning, and it's a space that is associated, symbolically speaking, with sleep. So rest if you need to rest, dream if you need to dream, meditate, create spiritual practices, read things, search for things, share things, teach things. And that might be one of the ways in which this eclipse is showing up for you. With Venus, the eclipse in your sign, in a way this ironically talks about new beginnings, whether these new beginnings are like 1 foot in something new, 1 foot in something old, or a need to let something go in order for something else to come in. Scorpio is typically good at shedding its skin. My joke about Scorpio is that it will do change when it wants to. But that's the thing about eclipses, that sometimes eclipses really force the moment, and it says that it's time to change and transform for the better. Sagittarius. Sagittarius, Jupiter is your planet, as you've probably been hearing me talk about. It's been in Gemini since the end of May of 2024. So what is that? We are coming up on 4 months. I can't do math at this moment since Jupiter went to Gemini, and Gemini is by and large a very busy, social, and even dynamic place for Jupiter to be. So it's pulling your energy over to your sign of relationships. This continues to be a period of your life until May of 2025, where it's about other people. Meaning you can't isolate, you can't be alone, or maybe you're getting a lot of invitations to things, or maybe you want to be social. Maybe you do want to connect with other people. Maybe it's about relationships. Maybe it's even about serious relationships or romantic relationships. I say serious relationship because you continue to have Saturn in a very prominent place in your astrology into the beginning of 2026. It's talking about family and home, your living situation. Where is home and who is home? Maybe parents are older and they need your attention. Maybe you want to start a family. Maybe you're contemplating family just as a general topic. But Saturn here is typically where we put down roots. So you're in a period of putting down roots, building the foundation, or rebuilding the foundation of your life. And with the square to Jupiter, it's not about like flimsy relationships. It's about serious relationships, but people that are actually going to be a support in your life. Libra talks about another type of relationship for you. It talks about friendships and community. So this is our last eclipse in this part of the chart, your 11th sign, until 2033. So there's something, and it's for you, Sagittarius, to see how this is relevant in your life, to see how your social landscape has either shifted over the last 18 months, or maybe you've needed to spend more time in your community, or community has been a big focal point of your energy over the last 18 months. Maybe this is about friends and community. Maybe this is about finding allies and people who are like-minded. And for some Sages, it's about really getting involved in something, because typically Sagittarius really wants to put its heart and its spirit behind something. It's getting involved in something in the community, or something that is for the greater good, because Libra for you is also social issues and social causes. Further, it's also a sign that opens you up towards the future. So this eclipse is also about looking ahead. What do you want to create in your life, especially as you have Saturn at the base and foundation, really trying to shore things up? Who do you want to be in your life? Who are your allies? What is your benchmark for friendships and community? And how is that going to be a big focal point even into 2025? Capricorn. So Saturn is your planet. You hear me say this every week. So Saturn moves so slowly. Saturn actually takes 29.5 years to go around the zodiac. It takes 29.5 years to go around the sun. That it will spend its time in one side of the zodiac for about 3 years. That means in English that your life has these distinct 3-year chapters. And so we had a chapter with Saturn in Aquarius. This was 2020 to 2023. And since March of 2023, Saturn has been in Pisces. Pisces is a little bit of an interesting lens for Saturn, because Pisces is so, by its nature, immaterial. Saturn is material. It's matter. It's the physicality of life. This is why typically the Capricorns I know, they are builders, they are constructors, they are thinking about the future, they are building towards the future. They just naturally are the boss, and not that they want to be it, they just naturally take on these roles. But Pisces has different motivations. It's about spirituality, it's about the spirit, it's about the things that truly matter versus necessarily the things that you can touch. So you're having to really figure out your physical life, but also perhaps your spiritual life, or that are really getting into these bigger questions about what's truly of value. For some Capricorns, it is a time to really focus on your education. You're taking classes, you're trying to use your voice more, you're trying to be accountable for the voice that you use. Maybe you're teaching, maybe people are looking up to you, or maybe you need to get back to basics. There is, for some Capricorns, this is a time about choice and really learning to listen to yourself, because Pisces is a very intuitive sign, so that you can feel out what are the best choices for you and what are not the best choices for you. Keep that all in mind, because this eclipse, while it does not necessarily talk about Saturn or even talk about Pisces, it does talk about Libra. Libra is your career sign. So whether that's literally the title after your name, the direction that you're taking your life in professionally, could be your public life, it could be the duties and responsibilities that you carry on a larger level. Libra, by and large, is a sign that pushing you to grow up and mature. You could be 80 years old and you still have this eclipse, and it's still that time to really think about the roles and the responsibilities that you carry in the world. For some Capricorns, this is very much about your professional life. Perhaps you've seen a lot of dynamic changes, movement, energy, and this eclipse is just continuing a story that has been there since 2023. For some Capricorns, it is a career change, a shift, getting a new job. For some Capricorns, it's more about needing to take on more duties and responsibilities. For some Capricorns, it is your public life, or really thinking about the ambitions and the goals that you're going after, and maybe even, maybe I want to go after a different goal or ambitions, because Saturn's in Pisces, and Pisces is like, I don't care if they give me $1 million. First, it has to feed my soul. At least that is the requisite with Saturn near Neptune into next year. This eclipse is also playing off of Mars and Cancer. It is very much pressing upon relationships, whether that's relationships in general or your primary or even intimate relationships. It's a bit of a spicy eclipse. It's sort of hitting on structural points in your life. Maybe as a result, you're weighing your options. Is it a left? Is it a right? Is it a yes? Is it a no? Is it up or a down? Do not forget to spend some quiet time with yourself, to meditate, pray, reflect, whatever works for you, so you can begin to hear yourself. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet. I was saying this for Capricorn, also ruled by Saturn. Saturn moves so slowly that it will concentrate its energy and its focus in one sign of the zodiac for up to 3 years. It's typically 2.5, 3 years at a time. So it's just been about Pisces, whether you're like, what's Pisces? I thought I'm Aquarius, but the energy of your sign is pointing over to Pisces. Pisces is your second sign. Ironically, it's both about money and income, material stability and security. I say ironically because Pisces is by its nature not a material sign. It's about spirituality. It's about thinking about not just the future, it's thinking about what really truly matters and how you align your physical material life with the things that are greater than this life, the things that are your emotional legacy, your spiritual values, for example. On a very nuts and bolts level, this is a time where maybe you are making major investments, making purchases, or maybe you're just really focusing on your material life. That said, this eclipse that we are having is in something called your 9th sign. And the 9th, kind of like Pisces, talks about the things that we believe in, the things that we stand for, the things that are really in alignment with our larger values, whether those are external world values or internal world values. For some Aquariuses, this is a time to really think about matters of faith, truth, meaning. For some Aquariuses, it's about education. I need to focus on my higher education. I need to invest in my education. For some Aquariuses, this is a time for you to really share something, to teach something, to illuminate a path for people. This eclipse is making a square to Mars, so it might be hitting on themes in your astrology that talk about service and like the greater purpose and good, and like how do you take all these big ideas that are maybe, you know, coming up in your astrology at the moment, but make them real, make them lived, make them grounded, make them part of your day-to-day life. For some Aquarius, this new moon eclipse is about travel, perhaps long distance travel, foreign travel, and the search for wisdom and knowledge in the world. Finally, Pisces. Pisces. So, how are you? Look, a little quick. How are you doing, Pisces? Because you did 2 weeks ago have a full moon lunar eclipse in your sign. And this is the first time we've had eclipses in Pisces, I believe, since early 2017. So it's been a while. It's been 7.5 years. And so when you have eclipse in our sign, a lot is going on, or at least that's the case on paper. But let's look at this eclipse. It's a different eclipse. It's not in Pisces. This eclipse is actually in Libra. And Libra is something called your 8th sign. We talked about this last week, and maybe this is in a way related to things that are coming up with this lunar eclipse that we had 2 weeks. The 8th is a very emotional space. It's a space where we have to go to look at ourselves, examine ourselves, sometimes to face ourselves. And one of the ways in which I frame the 8th is imagine a life where nothing happens. Imagine a life where everything stays the same. Do you grow? Absolutely not. It's not the easiest time for Pisces, if I'm being completely honest, because Saturn continues to be in your sign. Maybe you're thriving, maybe you're building, maybe you're constructing, maybe you're taking the lead, maybe you're taking the next step up in your maturity and your growth, or maybe you just feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and maybe it just feels like a lot. Maybe it's just capital L life at the moment. If it is capital L life at the moment, this eclipse might be bringing up a lot of these deeper emotions. Maybe it's things that we need to look at. Maybe these are things that have just always been there, but astrology is saying now is the time. This is an eclipse that might talk about legacy, really thinking about the things about, what do you pass on? What, like your legacy, whether that's emotional legacy, whether that's financial legacy. Maybe for some Pisces, it's about intimacy, vulnerability, trust, power, and control. This eclipse, in a way, is bringing up, I gotta do the math quickly, it is bringing up matters of faith and truth and meaning, and maybe even these bigger questions that come up when we do face ourselves. Well, if going through sometimes rough patches makes us question our faith, or question what we believe in, or question what we stand for. But with Jupiter square Saturn, this is just my pragmatic advice, because Saturn is so practical and so much about doing something concrete. Give time to Saturn, even though this is not an eclipse about Saturn, but Saturn says create ritual and practice in your life. Create time for yourself. Even if you're having to carry a lot of duties and responsibilities, make sure there's time for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes. Set the timer on your phone, meditate, do whatever the things that you need in order to nourish yourself. Maybe you need to talk to somebody. Maybe you need to feel like you have an ally or a counselor or a therapist, because that person will help you to navigate this time within yourself, but also the time around you. Maybe you need to read books. Maybe you need to sort of get into deeper material that helps you to figure out these bigger questions in life. It's going to mean different things for different Pisces, but like I said, overall, just a lot of Saturn energy in your astrology, and maybe that's really getting you to think more deeply about the future and what the life you're building, and how maybe you need to make some long overdue changes. So that is your look at the astrology for September 30th through October 6th, 2024. Yes, we are coming into a solar eclipse, so thinking of you all, and I see some familiar faces in the chat, and just always let me know how you're doing. It's always good to hear from you. You can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, I'm on Spotify. You can sign up for my newsletter. Maybe I'll see you this weekend for the level 1 intensive for energetic sciences, where you can learn how to feel your energetic reality, how you can learn to regain stability, especially in a world that is doing this and ups and downs, and really to discover how everything is connected. So something that's very close to my heart, and that's why I'm teaching it. So I will see you all next week. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.